If you're going to sit for the AQA physics, these are the most important topics that you need to prepare for that exam is concerned. So in this case, we're going to look at terminal velocity. You need to know by tomorrow that how do you define, you need to know how do you define terminal velocity. We need to say that terminal velocity is the constant velocity attained by an object moving in a fluid. It can either be moving in air or it can be moving in a liquid or water. So what you need to realize here is that terminal velocity is attained when the resultant force is equal. So for instance, if there is a ball that is moving through air, there is air resistance, and also there is the weight of the object. So when the weight and the air resistance are balanced, then the object is going to attain what we call terminal velocity. Other objects, what we need also to remember is that the speed of the object, as the speed of the object increases, the air resistance also increases. So when the two are balanced, the object is said to attain terminal velocity. Examples where we have terminal velocity attained is, for instance, a raindrop that is falling. We have the weight and we have air resistance. Then it will attain terminal velocity when the two are equal. So another example is motion of a parachutist. You need to know how to describe that. And this is the main features of motion of a parachutist. And between AB, the resultant forces are acting downwards. The weight is greater than air resistance, so the person is accelerating. And then from B to C, we have downward force and upward forces are equal. Then the resultant force is going to be 0. So meaning BC, the parachutist is moving at terminal velocity. At point C, let's look first, let me write at point B, weight and air resistance are equal, so resultant force is 0. Then the object attains terminal velocity. At point C, that's where the parachute is opened, and then when the parachute is opened, there's a sudden increase of upward force, which is air resistance. And in that case, now CD, the parachute is open and the air resistance is greater than the weight, so the parachutist is going to decelerate in that region. DE, we have the forces again balanced, and in that case we're going to say there is terminal velocity at that given point. We need also to change the gear and look at something else, something that is really new. And let me say, if you are new to Proflan YouTube channel, consider subscribing so that anytime I'm going to do another tutorial, you'll be notified. Now let us look at moments. Moment of force is another area that you really need to know on how to work. First, we need to understand moment is the product of force and the perpendicular distance, or we can be able to say moment is the turning effect of a force. So for example, if you are opening a door, you are opening a tab, you are opening the flap of your computer or rather laptop. Even when you are using a spanner or a crowbar, those are examples and instances of turning effect of the force. And you need to understand the units and also the formula used to calculate the moment. And in this case, for instance, if you have a spanner and you want to loosen a bolt, then you apply a force, there will be a turning effect. And that turning effect is going to be what? A moment. And moment is going to be equal to the force that's applied 20 newtons times the distance from where the force is acted to the pivot. Momentum, you need to understand that momentum is mass times the velocity of the object. Momentum is a vector quantity, and then you need to understand the law of conservation of momentum, that total momentum before collision is equals to total momentum after collision. Once you've understood that, you need also to understand that conservation of momentum means momentum is not lost. And you need also to know how you can be able to use this law of conservation of momentum in order to work out the equations. For instance, we have player A of 78 mass moving at a velocity of 7.5 meters per second. Oh. Okay, all right. That's enough. Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Yeah. Yeah, that's enough. So all right. Let's teach these guys physics. Yeah, sorry. Our small prof learner was really crying, wanted to come and do the lesson with you. So let me just go ahead, and then I need to mention that no, this one, don't touch it, don't touch this. I'll just give you this, just press this one. Yeah. So we're told player A has a mass of 75 kg and a velocity of, player A has a mass of 78 kg and a velocity of 7.5 meters per second. Then we have the second player who's having the mass of 91 kilograms moving to the left, which is negative 6.5. Then you are supposed here, you are supposed to work out the velocity at which they move together after collision. So you're going to use the law of conservation of momentum, that momentum before collision is equals to the momentum after collision. So in that case, we are going to say 78 times 7.5 plus 91 times negative 1 point, this is 6.5. Let me check. Or 1.5. Let's use 1.5, and then in that case we are going to because they are going to no, don't make noise, and since they are going to be moving together, we are going to have the fact that we are going to add the two masses together and then times v, because they are going to move together with a common velocity. So which means that if you're gonna substitute that and put the like terms together, make v the subject, what we are going to get in this case is that just have this is now we need to understand also that increasing the time of impact when you are using the protective pads, all that is going to increase the time of impact and is going to reduce the force, because force is equal to the rate of change of momentum. And then also this apply in the case of airbags in cars, which also increases the time of impact, and that reduces the force that, and the car occupants are going to be protected whenever there is an accident that has occurred. All right, so basically that's what we're going to talk about. And the next part is motion graphs. You need to understand in distance time graph, gradient represents speed, and for distance from distance time graphs, we can be able to read distance direct. We can be able to read distance. We can be able to read distance direct from the graph. And for velocity time graphs, the gradient represents acceleration, and also you need to remember that area under the velocity time graph is going to represent the distance covered by the object. And also you need to understand different shapes and what they represent in motion graphs. For instance, if you have a velocity time graph like that, and then you have a graph like this, if the gradient is steeper, it means that that is a higher acceleration. But if we are having this one, it means the object is decelerating. And when you have a graph that looks like that, it means the object is accelerating, because the gradient becomes steeper and steeper from one end to another. If you have a curve and you want to find acceleration, you need to find the gradient of the tangent at that particular given point that you are told to work out. For instance, we have a question here, and we were told that this is a distance time graph, and then you are supposed to locate the motion or describe the motion between 0 and 30 seconds. And since this is a curve, it also means that this is an acceleration, accelerating, and the curve, the gradient of the tangent gets steeper with time, so it's accelerating. Distance covered, you just go to the, because it's a distance time graph, it will mean you are going to move from one point, you move up where you meet the graph, then you will be able to read that particular point at that given point there. So basically that is going to be 2.6 meters, and that's exactly what we are going to do. So after understanding concept to do with motion graphs, you need also to understand that acceleration is equal to final velocity over initial velocity over time. And then this is going to be also, you need to remember Newton's second law of motion, that force equals to mass times acceleration, whereby m is the mass and then a is the acceleration. Then if you are given a question whereby you are given the initial velocity and final velocity and acceleration, then you can be able to work out the time there. We are given final as 0.52, initial as 0.12, and acceleration was 0.04, so we can be able to find the time. And in that case, we're going to say in this case that if we substitute, our time is going to be 1 second. And in the event we are asked to work out work done is force times distance, and in this question we are given the work done as 4.8, and then first we were supposed to work out the distance, distance. So using the final velocity, initial velocity, plus 2 times acceleration times displacement, then we can be able to get our displacement from this particular formula, which is going to translate to what? Which is going to translate to 3.2 meters. Once you have the 3.2, once you have the 3.2 meters, then you can be able to say, that work done is equals to force times distance. So since we have the work done 0.48 and the force we don't know, and the distance already we have gotten it to be 3.2, then we can be able to get 1.5 newtons as the force that was applied on the object. After looking at this, we need also to look at another concept, and this concept that we shall talk about here is the concept of, shall work out the concept of let me just write here, how an alternator work. How does an alternator work? So the key area, the key concept in this particular point here is to understand that when the coil turns, it will cut through the magnetic field, because the alternator is used to generate electric current. So when the coil is going to turn, it will cut through the magnetic fields. And when the coil cuts through, as the coil cuts through the magnetic fields, there is an induced current in the conductor which is created. So when the coil cuts through the magnetic field, there will be an induced current, and the induced current is going to depend on the direction of motion of the coil, the force, the speed at which it's rotating, and the strength of the magnet. So when this alternator is going to rotate, we are going to have that coil cutting through the magnetic field. So you need also to realize at this given point that you can be able to increase the speed of the you can be able to increase the amount of induced current by doing three things. Number one, increasing the speed using more coils, and also using a stronger magnet. So that is key, that is important for you to remember as far as this area is concerned. We need also to check which is the other important concept that you need to remember as far as AQA physics concerned. Paper 2, we are going also to look at let's look at that. We are going to look at electromagnetic waves. Under electromagnetic waves, you need to understand that this is a family of waves which are arranged in the order of increasing frequency and wavelength. So you need to understand the distance between two successive crests, that's wavelength, amplitude of a wave. Also, you need to understand what it is. You need also to remember, in this case, different formulas under this area. The first formula that you the first formula that you need to remember is that the wave equation is equals to V times frequency times wavelength is equals to frequency times wavelength, and frequency is equals to 1 over periodic time, or periodic time period is equals to 1 over F. So that is exactly what you need to remember as far as that area is concerned. So you need to understand also common properties of the waves in the electromagnetic spectrum, and also you need to understand how you can be able to describe common properties of these EM waves. So number one, we need to understand first their order, and we need to understand that the first one is the radio waves. Then we have microwaves, we have infrared, we have visible light, we have ultraviolet, we have X-rays. Common properties is going to include all of them obey the wave equation, which we have mentioned. They are transverse, they have crests and troughs, and we can also they travel through the vacuum at the speed of light. They undergo reflection, refraction, and diffractions. But if you are asked about the differences, the difference is they have different wavelength and frequency. We need also to understand uses and also the harmful effects of the electromagnetic waves. Yeah, so uses, we shall talk of uses. We can talk of radio waves are used for communication. Ultraviolet are used for production of light in fluorescent tubes. We can talk of infrared. They are used for cooking and also in remote controls. We can talk of X-rays. They are used in hospitals for radiography. We can talk of also they are used. X-rays are used also in industries to detect flaws and fractures in metallic metals and also ion sheets. We can talk also of the use of gamma radiations in hospitals for radiotherapy and treatment of cancer. And so those are the areas that we need to understand. Also, we need to understand the hazards of the electromagnetic waves. For instance, we have ultraviolet, which can be able to cause skin cancer. We have X-rays and gamma rays, which can cause through mutation and lead to cancer. We have infrared, which can cause skin burns. Yeah, so those are some of the areas that you really need to remember in order for you to understand, for you to earn all the marks as far as this AQA physics is concerned. So we need also to talk about, we need to mention also something to do with lenses. And lenses, you need to understand the construction of images and the characteristics of images as well. So about electromagnets are magnets which are constructed due to the flow of electric current. And in this case, for instance, if you are having a bolt there and then you have a solenoid, the bolt will be attracted if you close the switch, because the solenoid becomes magnetic, so it's going to attract that bolt out. And then the strength of the electromagnet depends on the amount of electric current that is flowing through. If you're new to Proflan YouTube channel, consider subscribing so that anytime I'm going to upload more tutorials, you'll be notified. So basically that is exactly what I wanted us to talk about in that area. Then we can be able to stop there. So wish you the best of luck, guys, and if you're new to Proflan, continue subscribing.